I've been a little sick this week, so I didn't have time to get an actual video up. I decided to make a supercut of all my Marvel Rivals lore videos, so I hope you enjoy it. It's going to be pretty long. I think I haven't actually edited it yet, but I just wanted to stop by, say that it's a bunch of videos I've already posted, so if you've seen all those videos, then you don't really have to watch this, but it's pretty much just a supercut of all those lore videos. If you like this video and was tipped at really cool Marvel Rivals, or just see more videos like this, you should definitely subscribe for more. Enjoy the rest of the video. Starting with Galacta, she is the daughter of Galactus. As far as her involvement in Marvel Rivals, we don't know that much. She serves as the announcer in game, but we can theorize a little bit here. In the comics, Galacta doesn't really see eye to eye with her dad. However, she is just like Galactus and does still need to feed herself. She chooses to do this by consuming threats to Earth rather than the natives of said Earth. So more than likely in Marvel Rivals, she's gathering heroes from their timelines to help stop opposing timelines from invading and destroying Earth. Marvel Rivals Multiverse Mayhem started with none other than Victor Von Doom. And of course, the only being that could ever rival Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, but from the year 2099. The two Dooms are experimenting with the timeline when both experiments go haywire. It causes universes to collide, in what's known as a time stream entanglement, causing multiple realities to cross over as an all-out war begins. With the timelines all jumbled up in a mess, both Dooms are fighting each other for control to reshape the reality as they see fit. The heroes on the other hand are trying to stop both Dooms before they destroy reality itself. The green cloaked Doom is none other than Victor Von Doom as we know and love him. For this video, I want to go over a lot of characters, so unless their origins drastically differentiate, I won't go over what most of us already know. The blue cloaked Doom is different than the usual Doom we are accustomed to. Obviously, Doom 2099 is from, you guessed it, the year 2099. This Doom is still Victor Von Doom, however. In the comics, Victor awakes in the year 2099 amidst the rubble of Latveria, only to find his castle has been taken over. He quickly realizes it's been almost 100 years since he had vanished, and then even quicker he realizes his armor is no match for 2099's technology. And even quicker than all of that, Doom adapts and quickly retakes his castle, vowing to rebuild Latveria. Throughout his fight to free Latveria, many theories are tossed up as to whether or not this Doom is even the real Victor. While suffering from memory issues, he does remember being Doom in the Age of Heroes and even defeating Reed Richards, then growing old. But despite all odds, in the end it was revealed Doom 2099 is the real Victor Von Doom, just an alternate future version of himself. And in Marvel Rivals this seems to be the case. While his background may end up being slightly different from his comic counterpart, it is still Victor Von Doom versus Victor Von Doom. And no matter the winner, everyone but Doom loses. Now that we've set up the main conflict and big players, we can talk about the heroes and villains that we get to play as in-game, as some of their stories are unique to Marvel Rivals. For example, the Punisher we play as in-game is from the year 2099. So that's where we'll start. And just a quick side note before we get into it, not all the characters' backstories have been released. For example, the new 5 characters that were just revealed haven't really been fleshed out, and we're not really sure what's going on with them just yet. So for now, they'll be excluded from this video, but if you want to keep updated on the lore of Marvel Rivals and you want to know more about their story, you should definitely subscribe for more, because I'm going to try and keep you up to date. The Punisher has a meeting with the Red Room, now led by Black Widow, and takes an experimental serum that vastly extends his lifespan, one which Black Widow has also taken. Punisher uses his serum to continue his war against organized crime. Unfortunately for Frank, him and Black Widow have a disagreement, and he decides to head home. He then finds and interrogates an engineer working for Doom. The engineer reveals Doom is going to launch a satellite into space, so Frank decides to stop him. Frank and Black Widow meet up and Natasha proposes they work together, but Frank refuses. Despite his refusal, they still do end up working together, and Frank plants explosives on the cargo ship holding Doom's satellite. However, the explosives were not enough to stop the launch of Doom's weapon, but Black Widow steps up and stops it. Black Widow then offers Frank a spot in the team she's assembled to stop Doom. Black Widow, having also taken the experimental serum that Frank did, used her extended lifespan to liberate and reclaim the Red Room, now assembling a new team to stop Doom. The Captain himself fights in World War II and is eventually frozen as per usual, but isn't de-thawed until the 2080s where he finds the dystopian future led by Doom. Naturally, he immediately resumes his fight against tyranny and is trying to stop Doom 2099. Until the time stream entanglement where he ends up fighting alongside the other Avengers for their future. Bucky serves as the Winter Soldier for a while until eventually breaking free from his mind control. He's held captive and tortured until he's saved by Hawkeye and Captain America. Hawkeye fought with the Avengers for a time before ultimately leaving to become Ronin. He then comes back to fight alongside his former team now that he's older and wiser. Tony Stark turned the Avengers Tower into a stronghold where he plans to reverse the time stream entanglement. T'Challa has advanced Wakanda into the stars and created the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda. He currently awaits for a message from Bass letting him know if either Doom is trustworthy. Namor has been lying dormant under the waves for a while until deciding it was time to strike at the surface. In the future, he sets his sights on Jeju Island. During a concert, an Atlantean creature attacked Luna's venue, causing a tsunami. She was unable to stop the tsunami with her ice powers and healed the wounded creature, preventing a war between the land and Atlanteans. Bruce Banner thought he had finally come up with a plan to control his transformations into the Hulk. He had developed a gamma belt which allowed him to transform into the Hulk at will. While it did work, Bruce was still not in control, and the more gamma energy Hulk produced, the more it fed back into the belt. And as it did, the bigger, meaner, and angrier the Hulk got, causing him to become even more monstrous. Despite the experiment being a failure, there was potential for Hulk to become even stronger. Moon Knight has been fighting for a very long time in the service of Khonshu, and honestly, he doesn't remember a lot of it. In case you haven't noticed, a few of these characters don't have a lot of lore just yet, but the game fully hasn't launched, so we'll definitely learn more as time goes on, and if you like this, you should definitely subscribe because I'll keep you updated. Also, I stream Marvel Rivals every day, or I will when the game launches, starting at 3 p.m. Central Time, and you can watch it over here on my YouTube, so again, another reason to subscribe, or you can go over to my Twitch, which is going to be linked down in the description below, or up here, or you can join my Discord where you get updates on all my videos and all my streams, which is also going to be linked down below or right up here. So you should definitely join. When Odin was forced into his regenerative sleep, Thor and Loki fought for the throne of Asgard. Ultimately, Loki imprisoned Thor, but Thor was able to escape. Thor flew to Asgard and confronted Loki, but Loki had enlisted Hela's help. Just as Thor was nearing his end, Hela threw Thor into another timeline, where he was immediately attacked by the Hulk. Thor ended up damaging Hulk's gamma belt, which caused Hulk to revert back to Bruce. Bruce then explained that this timeline's Thor had gone missing and then agreed to help Thor return to his original world so he could free Asgard. Loki has conquered Asgard and with the help of Hela, plans to take over the entire time stream. Hela has agreed to help Loki so she could gain more power and plans on betraying Loki so that she can control the time stream herself. Doctor Strange sent a disturbance in the time stream and cast a spell in an attempt to protect the timeline. This ultimately backfired and instead left him trapped in the Sanctum Sanctorum, which is now trapped in the mirror dimension. Fortunately, Strange is able to cast spells to temporarily join the fight before ultimately returning to his imprisonment. Magik has been fighting a timeline-spanning war as a general of Limbo's army and frequently meets up with mutant allies on Krakoa to ensure their survival in the current time stream entanglement. Scarlet Witch's chaos magic is one of the few things holding the universe together. If her or her powers fail, Wanda believes the rest of the universe will disintegrate. Magneto wishes to ensure the survival of the mutant race and is on a quest to transfer mutants safely onto a future Krakoa island. Storm is currently helping stabilize the environment of Krakoa due to its unpredictability because of the time stream entanglement. However, this is only a temporary solution. Psylocke is a warrior residing in feudal Japan who traveled across the country striking down any ancient evil that got in her path. However, she was ripped from her time and put on display by the Collector. Mantis was captured by the Collector as well and put on display just like Psylocke. However, Mantis managed to escape and free Psylocke with the help of Jeff the Shark. As mentioned, Jeff was put on display by the Collector, but when the time stream was scrambled, Jeff managed to escape and make some new friends. When Adam Warlock sensed the time stream disruption, he cocooned himself to be protected. When he emerged, he sensed Null was a great threat. He then flew to Clintar, meeting the Guardians of the Galaxy there. Groot flew to Clintar with Star-Lord and Rocket, where they ended up becoming stranded. Now Null wishes to corrupt Groot's healing ability to create the ultimate symbiote. Shuri requested that Star-Lord take some of the Guardians and head to Clintar to scout out potential threats. However, they ended up stranded there. Rocket is stranded alongside the previously mentioned Guardians, fighting for him and his team's survival on Clintar. The Lethal Protectors decided to protect multiple timelines as Venom is currently displaced in time fighting occult wars. During his adventures, he had a vision of a horrifying future caused by Null. Now he sets out to either defeat Null or imprison him and take the throne for himself. Spider-Man is fighting a war on two fronts. He rallies the heroes to fight back in New York while also defending the Web of Life and Destiny in Tokyo Web World. Penny Parker has dedicated her life to protecting the web and any reality connected to it, saving as many as she can while doing so. While not being a playable character, it seems Null will have a notable presence in the lore. Null at one point has met up with Hela and the two hate each other. Venom believes Null will attack Hela eventually. Null plans to make the ultimate symbiote life form and believes Groot's powers are the key to this. It was another sweltering summer night on the island of Manhattan. Though the sun had gone down hours earlier, the residual heat left behind still radiated from the pavement in shimmering waves. The forecast had not called for any relief from the record temperatures in the immediate future, but the residents of Greenwich Village had come to expect the unexpected thanks to one of their more colorful neighbors. So when a powerful blast of icy air swept down the Bleecker Street, it barely drew any attention, at least from those outside. Within the confines of the building marked 177A, however, someone had most certainly taken notice of the sudden chill. "We have a visitor," said Dr. Stephen Strange, barely looking up from the ancient tome in front of him. The Sorcerer Supreme was sitting cross-legged, floating a few feet in the air as he studied the arcane rituals within this sacred text. He paused for a moment before speaking again, this time with a slightly more commanding tone. "Wong, do get the door, please. We mustn't keep our guests waiting." Wong's out in a supply run, a gruff voice replied from below. Guess we ran out of Eye of Newt or something? How come you never told me we were expecting company, Doc? Because we weren't, Strange replied as he looked down at Bats, the ghostly beset hound that had recently become one of their most faithful companions. Strange unfolded his legs and gently landed on the floor of his study. But invited or not, this is one visitor that it would be best to not turn away without at least hearing what he has to say. After all, he has traveled quite far to get here. Haven't you, Victor? Indeed I have, Stephen, replied the unexpected guest in an authoritative voice. There in the hallway, just outside of Dr. Strange's inner sanctum, stood the metal-clad monarch of Latveria, the villainous Victor Von Doom. How the heck did he get in here? Bat said with a low growl, the green glow from his spectral form intensifying. This place is supposed to be intruder-proof. It seems that the good doctor's sanctum sanctorum is desperately in need of some more powerful protection spells, Doom replied snidely, and perhaps a better watchdog as well. I suppose I could use to change a few mystic locks, Strange said with a smirk, though I scarcely have to worry about anyone getting past the front door. After all, there aren't many mortals as adept at sorcery as you. You flatter me, Stephen, Doom replied. Do go on. It's true, Strange continued. I may be this dimension's sorcerer supreme, but when it comes to the mastery of the dark arts, you may very well be my equal, which makes the fact that you've come here even more concerning. If you need my help, then something must be very wrong. Everything is wrong, Stephen, Doom said, and it has been for far too long, but I believe I've discovered a way to fix it, to bend time itself to my whims. Time is not something to be tampered with, Strange replied. The cost is far too high. You know that. But what if the reward were even greater? Doom continued. I'm on the verge of something magnificent, Stephen, and you hold the key to my success. What's this chrome-plated crackpot yapping about? Bats asked, clearly growing more impatient with every second. Victor has long sought to undo some critical mistakes that led him down his current path, Strange said. Doom does not make mistakes, the visitor replied sternly. However, there were certain steps along my journey that, if retread, could lead to possibilities that currently lie beyond my grasp. Tell me, Stephen, have you not ever wished to rewind the clock? Strange paused, looking down at his mangled hands, wondering how his life might have unfolded had he not been the accident that had forced him to go from renowned surgeon to reclusive sorcerer. But as the Ancient One had taught him, fate was not in the hands of any mortal, even those with unparalleled mystical might. I have become who I am supposed to be, Victor, Strange said. My journey would have ended in the same place no matter the road taken. I wish to prove otherwise, Doom replied, and to do so all I require is a single spell. The fact that you do not already have access to the spell you seek speaks volumes, Strange said, raising a curious eyebrow. There are few arcane rites unknown to a sorcerer of your esteem. Perhaps just the forbidden spells inscribed on the pages of the Darkhold, Doom said. Stephen Strange shuddered at the name. The Darkhold was a cursed collection of insidious incantations, said to be authored by the elder god of chaos known as Cthon. This so-called Book of Sins had a corrupting effect on those who dared to tap into its mystic malevolence. Strange had recovered the illicit text from the Dark Dimension long ago after a battle against his rival, Baron Mordo, and had stored it within the Sanctum Sanctorum for safekeeping ever since. I'm afraid that volume is off limits, old friend, Strange said resolutely. Which of these chthonic curses could possibly aid you in your endeavors anyways? The vampiric verses, Doom whispered, almost as if speaking the spell's name aloud was enough to unleash its terror upon the world. Hold on, Bats interrupted. You want to turn yourself into a vampire? Ain't you already spooky enough, fella? I wish no such thing, Doom said, his patience beginning to crumble away. But Dracula and his immortal legion used the same right centuries ago to successfully cheat time. Perhaps with a proper amount of scrutiny, I can do the same and unlock the secret of time's true nature. Ah, interesting approach, Strange said, but one far too risky for me to allow. I'm sorry, Victor, but the answer is no. I was afraid you would say that, old friend, Doom responded, but I will have what I seek, even if I must take it from you by force. Without a moment's notice, Doom conjured up the Veil of Khonshu, sending a massive wave of darkness cascading towards Strange. Claws of Bast! Strange commanded, slashing through the oncoming wall of ebony energy with brightly glowing purple claws that were forged from the spirit energy drawn directly from Wakandan ancestral plane, Dijala. Impressive, Stephen, Doom replied, circling his arms in a frenzied motion, but can you weather the mists of Fimbulwinter? Freezing gusts of wind rushed from the magical circle Doom had conjured, but Stephen Strange was not willing to back down, even as the bitter frost stiffened his cape. I've spent winters in Kamar Taj, Strange mused. This is nothing. Doom watched in surprise as Dr. Strange fought through the icy gusts to cast his next incantation. Even more shockingly, each of the Sorcerer Supreme's hands seemed to be conjuring their own spells, entirely independent of each other. One blazed a bright red while the others glistened gold. As Strange brought his hands together, he released an enchantment that even he had never summoned before, born from the combined energy of both the Crimson Cosmos and Asgard. Crimson Thorns of Yoggsdrizzle. I can't pronounce that word, so we're going to go with that. Long spiked vines erupted forth from Strange's hand, glowing a deep scarlet as they whipped towards their intended target. Before Doom could even think to utter a defensive spell, he found himself completely ensnared by the thorny limbs, unable to move. You seem to have forgotten that I am far more powerful when I'm within my own home, Strange said. For a guy who doesn't make mistakes, Doom, Bats added, that was a pretty big one. Perhaps I was too rash in my actions, Doom responded. Release me from these shackles, Stephen, and I assure you I will depart your home in peace. You ain't really gonna trust this guy, are you, Doc? Bats asked with a deep concern. I am, Strange replied, lowering his hands and releasing the spell's grip on Doom. Victor and I may have different goals and opinions when it comes to sorcery, but he has always been a man of his word. Indeed, Doom said as he began to walk from Strange's inner sanctum. And you also have my word, Stephen, that I will find a way to finally break the bonds of time. With your help, or without. And you have my word, Strange warned, that should you overstep your station, the Sorcerer Supreme will do whatever it takes to stop you. Now get out of here before we find out just how bite-proof that tacky armor of yours really is, Bats yelled. No one speaks to Doom like that, you mutt, Doom snarled back. You should consider yourself lucky that you are already deceased. Guess there's a first time for everything, Bats responded wryly. Before I go, Stephen, Doom said, looking back over his shoulder at Strange, a warning. I have foreseen great evil coming to this city you call home. You may be safe within your house of truth for now, but those outside this wall will soon be drowning in darkness. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Bats sparked towards the darkened doorway as Doom faded into the shadows. Easy, boy. He's already gone, Strange replied, but I have an uneasy feeling that we'll find out what Victor was talking about soon enough. So if you'll excuse me. With a simple gesture of one hand, Dr. Strange opened a sparkling portal to a hidden corner of the astral plane. One so remote that even he barely knew where it was located. With a wave of his other hand, the Darkhold flew off his bookshelf and into the rift. The extra-dimensional gateway quickly closed as soon as the ancient tome passed safely through, as if it's neither the portal nor the book had ever existed in the first place. For safekeeping, Strange said, almost as if reassuring himself. Doom will never find the Darkhold there. I just hope he's not the only one looking for it, said Bats, turning his attention back to the far less dangerous spellbook that he'd been studying when his unexpected guest first arrived. As Bats curled up on the floor of Dr. Strange's study, the chill finally faded from Bleecker Street. Soon enough, the sun would rise again and its heat would saturate the city. If only the residents of Manhattan had known how a few days of light and warmth they had left. A few months later, Stephen Strange sat in front of the large circular window on the upper level of his sanctum sanctorum, sipping on a cup of herbal tea. It had been some time since Victor Von Doom had paid him a visit, but the confrontation, while brief, had not left his thoughts. He often found himself wondering if Doom would succeed in his quest to conquer time itself. And this day, Strange would finally have his answer. Even before the blinding flash of lights filled the sky, Strange could feel the massive disturbance rippling across the fabric of time and space itself. He didn't know where it originated, but he had a single educated guess. Latveria. What have you done, Victor? Strange wondered aloud as a disturbance spiraled wildly across the material plane. It pierced through dimensions, including the astral plane, and surged towards the sanctum sanctorum. Strange had only a fraction of a second to react to the oncoming wave of coronal chaos, but he knew that his next move could very well determine not only his fate, but the fate of countless universes as well. Both as a surgeon and a sorcerer, Dr. Stephen Strange had faced countless life and death choices before, but never one as quite important as this. That would be Dr. Strange locking himself away in the mirror dimension, so he's trapped there, and every time you play him in a game, he's actually astral projecting outside of the mirror dimension. Now we get to Moon Knight, and then we have one more after that. But first, before we get into Moon Knight, if you like this video, definitely subscribe for more. And I appreciate you guys watching this video, so you should definitely subscribe. You also should join my Discord, which is going to be linked down below or up here. I also stream every day on YouTube and on Twitch. Twitch is also going to be linked down below my YouTube as well here, so you should definitely subscribe. But if you're in my Discord, you also get updates on all my videos and my live streams, so you should definitely subscribe and join my Discord. Now on to Moon Knight. Come to me, my Moon Knight. The ancient voice boomed in the back of Mark Spector's brain, momentarily throwing him off his game. It wasn't as if hearing someone else's words in his head was something new. He'd been sharing the same space with multiple personalities for years now. But this wasn't Jake Loxley or Stephen Grant calling for his attention. It wasn't even the enigmatic Mr. Knight. This was the boss. I'm a bit busy, Spector replied out loud as he thrust his white boot into the face of yet another garlishly garbed supervillain. Trying to keep the Zodiac from ransacking one of your temples. You sent me here, remember? So you'll need to call me back another now, the voice commanded. A sudden burst of pain coursed through Spector's skull. He closed his eyes for a moment to try and clear his head, and when he opened them again, he was no longer at the heart of an epic battle between good and evil. In fact, he was nowhere. Okay, so nowhere might be a bit dramatic, but it was the best that Spector would come up with to describe the blank white space between planes of reality that he had unexpectedly been transported to. A deafening silence hung in the void. For once, even the other voices in Mark Spector's head had nothing to say. For a moment, he felt as though he was the only being that existed. But he knew better. If he had been summoned here, he was well aware who had done the summoning. I have chosen you for a new battle, my avatar, the ancient voice said, finally breaking the quiet. Mark Spector turned to see an enormous figure towering over him. Draped in white Egyptian robes, where his head should have been, instead there sat the skull of a long-beaked bird. Its empty sockets peered into Mark Spector's soul, judging him, always judging him. "Hey, Khonshu," Spector replied casually to his patron, the Egyptian god of the moon. "Fancy seeing you here." "The divine space is where I dwell," Khonshu replied, not seeing any humor in Spector's words. "It is from here that I watch the realms beyond and find those who have earned my vengeance." "Yeah," Spector chimed in, "and from here that you sit pretty while I do your dirty work in the real world." "This has been our arrangement since your untimely demise years ago," Khonshu reminded Spector. "A gruesome fate you were spared by my intervention alone. Do you wish to alter our agreement?" "No," Spector replied, "but I would like to finish one mission before you toss me into the next one. Maybe that's just the mercenary in me." "I have always appreciated your dedication to a task," Khonshu said, "but more pressing matters have arisen that require your special attention." Something about Khonshu seemed different. He was more confident, more powerful, less scattered than usual. It was almost like all the fragmented personas that the moon god had presented over the years were suddenly fused into one. Spector didn't know what had caused the change, but he thought it must be nice. "Fine," Spector replied, beginning to grow impatient. "Just tell me whose head I need to bust open already." Spector's unfinished encounter with the Zodiac had pushed his level of aggression to the boiling point. He didn't want to just stand there and talk anymore. He wanted to get back in the fight, any fight. "What do you know of vampires?" Khonshu asked curiously. "That they suck," Spector responded with a chuckle, "and that Dracula owes me money." "As you know," Khonshu said, once again ignoring Spector's attempt to infuse some levity into the situation, "I have long served as the protector for travelers in the night, vicariously through me and the other fists of Khonshu before me," Spector mumbled under his breath. "But sure, go on." "Ever since they first crawled into the darkness ages ago, vampires have imperiled my people and my purpose," Khonshu continued, "and now I have had a vision that warns of the threat becoming far more permanent." "I thought vampires were immortal," Spector said quizzically. "Not many threats more permanent than that." "Immortal, yes," Khonshu said, "but bound by their curse to the cycle of day and night. They cannot walk in the sun, so their atrocities are limited to the hours under my watch, when the moon hangs high in the sky." "So what's the problem?" Spector asked. "Is daylight saving time about to end or something?" "No!" another voice answered. "Daylight itself is about to end." Spector turned to see that someone else had unexpectedly entered the divine space, an imposing figure in iron armor wrapped by a dark green cloak. Spector instantly recognized the king of Latveria, Victor von Doom. "This is sacred territory," Khonshu yelled. "You shall not foul it with your presence. Banish him, my Moon Knight." Yeah, Spector said, reluctantly rushing towards Dr. Doom. "I'm on it." As he ran in his enemy's direction, Spector reached into a pouch in his belt and grabbed a handful of crescent-shaped darts. He hurled them in Doom's direction, but the metal-clad monarch raised his gauntlet and deflected the projectiles as if they were no more than cheap toys. "I did not come here for a battle, Khonshu," Doom said, beginning to move his hand in a strange series of gestures. "But if you must turn your champion against me as a matter of honor, so be it." As Doom finished his series of hand motions, his armored fist began to glow with mystical flames. Soon, two curved burning blades materialized in his grip. "The daggers of Dormammu should end this night before he even begins," Doom said, with a smirk that you could almost feel behind his faceplate. "Good luck with that," Spector said, taking advantage of Doom's moment of bravado to land a solid fist right to the side of his opponent's masked face. Furious, Doom lunged at Spector, swinging his flaming daggers at the white-clad warrior. Spector dodged his thrust easily at first, but it wasn't long before his reaction started to slow. He barely had time to recover from his battle against the Zodiac, and 12-on-1 battle tends to take a toll on even the mightiest of heroes. Doom could see his opponent beginning to falter. He started to attack even more relentlessly, eventually gaining the upper hand. A kick to his chest sent Moon Knight stumbling back. Raising the enchanted blades above his head, Doom thrust him down at Spector, narrowly missing his target's body. Instead, the blades pierced through Moon Knight's cape, pinning him to the floor. One Spector didn't even realize existed in the emptiness of the divine space. "Enough!" Khonshu said. "You have won the right to speak." "And when Doom speaks," the victorious villain responded, casually gesturing for the mystical daggers to vanish, "all had best listen, for he only speaks once." Moon Knight pulled himself back to his feet, standing between Doom and Khonshu, just in case Doom had any other tricks up his iron sleeve. "Few recall the real origins of vampires," Doom said. "But you and I know the truth, Khonshu. Their race was born from an ancient curse inscribed in the pages of Darkhold, written in blood of Varney, the first of their kind. It was these vampiric verses that granted them immortal life, and if my calculations are correct, which they always are, that same spell may hold the key to unlocking the very nature of time itself. I wish to study it further." You know not what you tamper with, foolish mortal, Khonshu warned. I would know full well, Doom said, had the Sorcerer Supreme not denied me access to the Darkhold. I have good reason to believe he has stashed it away on another plane of reality for safekeeping. Seems like Strange made the right choice, Spectre said. The last thing we need is you accidentally unleashing more vamps on the world. Not the world, Doom said. All I want is a small portion of it, and that's where you come in. If Khonshu were to simply hold his beloved moon in the sky and shred a single city in eternal night, it would allow me all the time I need to unlock the secrets of the vampires, even without access to the vampiric verses themselves. You're crazy, Spectre said. That city would instantly become a nesting ground for the creatures of the night. Such an act would endanger countless innocents, Khonshu added. Please, Doom laughed. Since when do the gods care about the lives of a few million measly mortals? Together, we could use the vampires however we wish, then dispose of them completely when we— I will not allow this discussion to continue any further, Khonshu said sternly, raising a bony hand to silence Doom. There is far more at stake here than you could ever hope to know. A coming darkness lurking among the gods, a shadow even I may not be able to defeat. And by I, he means me, Spectre mumbled. My avatar may have lacked the skills required to remove you from this plane, Khonshu said, but I have no such limits. You fool! Doom cried out as he began to fade from the divine space. You're making a terrible mistake. Doom will have what he wishes, one way or another. As Doom's voice disappeared, a haunting silence returned to the empty whiteness surrounding Mark Spectre. Khonshu was still there, but for once it seemed like the god of the moon had nothing to say. So what now? Spectre finally asked. I must locate the Darkhold at once, Khonshu replied. The book with a spell that makes vampires, Spectre asked, confused. Isn't it better stowed away wherever Strange hid it? Just as the vampiric verses created our true enemies, Khonshu said, there is another spell within the Book of Sins, the Montesi formula, that could take their gift away permanently. So while you're cruising the astral plane looking for a lost library book, Spectre pondered, what on earth am I going to be doing? Protecting the night and delivering my vengeance, Khonshu replied, as you always have. And when Doom lives up to his promise and finds a way to unleash the blood-sucking horde, Spectre asked. Then you must be ready, Khonshu said, and so must I. I'm no vampire slayer, Spectre responded. Isn't that Blade's gig? Why not call him? Because the Daywalker is not my fist of vengeance, Khonshu replied defiantly, clearly angered that his own servant would dare question him. Also, he is currently unavailable, Khonshu added quietly. Alright then, Spectre said, grinning behind his featureless mask. But those fangers are about to find out that they aren't the only ones who want blood. I expected no less. Now go, my Moon Knight, Khonshu said, his voice once again booming in Mark Spectre's head, and serve me. Spectre blinked for a split second, opening his eyes to discover that he was no longer in the divine space. Now he was standing on a New York City rooftop. The silence was replaced by a symphony of sounds, including a scream emanating from a nearby alleyway. He was glad to be home. As Moon Knight left out the edge of the building and swung across the night sky on a grappling cable, his bright white cape billowed out behind him, luminous in the light of the full moon. It must have been a glorious sight to behold, he thought, but if Khonshu and Doom were right about what was to come, Mark Spectre knew his costume wouldn't stay white much longer. You know what the worst part about vampires is, Friday? Tony Stark asked, as he launched a barrage of short-range missiles from the cannon mounted on the shoulder of his Iron Man armor. The fact that they've taken over Manhattan thanks to an ancient curse that's thrust the entire city into a state of eternal night, the armor's AI replied matter-of-factly. Well, yeah, that, Stark responded, rolling his eyes as Friday stated the obvious yet again. But they're also a pain in my shiny metal butt when it comes to taking them down. As if to prove Tony's point, the cluster of missiles hit the ground at a nearby construction site, completely missing their intended target, a small group of vampires that had been prowling the streets of Hell's Kitchen. Most of my targeting systems are thermal, Stark continued, and since vampires aren't technically alive, they don't generate much in the way of body heat. Do you have any idea how many missiles I've wasted since I showed up? My most recent count is 1,963, Friday said, or approximately $98 million worth of— I get it, Stark sighed. I have to find a better way. A few minor modifications to your weapons array would improve your accuracy by 374.2%, Friday went on. I can project the revised schematics for you to review as you wish. It'll have to wait, Stark said. For now, I'll have to do this the old-fashioned way. Iron Man swooped in front of the group of vampires and unleashed a few strong repulsor blasts from the palm of his gauntlets, each one missing his bloodthirsty foe by mere inches. I'm not sure that switching to manual targeting is yielding any better results, sir, Friday said concerned. Maybe I'm not trying to hit them this time, Friday, Stark said, smiling as he continued to unleash his blasts to the sides of the vampires. At least not yet. The creatures of the night huddled closer and closer together to avoid the onslaught of energy bursts. The horde turned to flee, but they had been herded into a corner. Iron Man had them exactly where he wanted them. Unibeam Armor Overdrive, Stark commanded. Instantly, the reactor in the center of his chest began to glow with an intense power. A concentrated beam emanated from the arc reactor, washing over the vampires. When the light faded, the horde lay defeated at Tony's iron boots. Wow, Stark said. I really needed that. Well, I'm glad you got it out of your system, Tony, another voice interrupted over the armors calmly, because now I need you back in the lab. Ugh, you're such a buzzkill, Reed. Stark responded, clearly annoyed, but he knew that his fellow scientist, Reed Richards, the brilliant hero and explorer known as Mr. Fantastic, was right. Ever since Dr. Doom had unraveled the boundaries between time streams, causing them to overlap and entangle with each other, countless dimensions have been destroyed and the worlds that did survive have been thrown into complete chaos. Tony and Reed have put their big brains together to design a machine that might be able to reintegrate the timelines and restore the remaining realities to the way they have been before. But even with the help of a think tank of super geniuses including T'Challa and Shuri from the interstellar Wakandan Empire, their efforts hadn't produced any tangible results. That's because a time stream reintegration device required massive amounts of chronal power, the kind of raw time energy that could only be generated by a newly discovered element called chronovium. And until they secured enough chronovium to ensure TRD's success, Tony wasn't about to risk doing any more damage to the fabric of time and space, or to the device itself. Reed, on the other hand, didn't seem nearly as concerned. Ben just got back from his latest recon mission, Reed said over the comlink, and he recovered something that might be of great value to us. A lifetime supply of garlic? Tony half-joked. No, Reed answered dryly. A chronovium crystal, one of the purest I've ever seen. Then put it on a necklace and give it to Sue for your anniversary, Stark said sternly, because unless it's generating enough chronal energy to operate the time stream reintegration device at full capacity, we're not using it. Stop being so stubborn, Tony, Reed replied. We both know that the real science requires experimentation. We can't trust a TRD to fix all the universe's problems if we haven't properly tested it first. The way I see it, we've got one shot at this, Stark argued. We've checked the numbers. The design is flawless. The device is our golden ticket to fixing the time stream. I'm not looking to change course here, but if we rush it and wreck it, we could lose our only shot. I've had my share of luck in Vegas, but this one gamble, I'm not ready to take. Are you? Reed paused just long enough that Tony thought he might have lost the signal, but then he finally replied. I suppose not, Reed said, his voice tinged with disappointment, but we can't stay in a holding pattern forever. The time will come when we have to pull the trigger, ready or not. Take it from a guy who used to make weapons for a living, Stark said. Even when you think you're ready to pull the trigger, you never really are. Funny, another voice responded, this one nearby. I've never had that problem before. Tony had been so caught up in his conversation with Reed that he failed to notice the arrival of another hero on the scene, the white-clad warrior known as Moon Knight. You're a little late to the party, Spectre, Stark said confidently. I already cleared out all the unwanted guests. That's not what Khonshu told me, Moon Knight replied. He says the vamps have been using the site as a secondary nesting ground. You're crazy, Stark laughed. If there were more of them here, my armor totally would have... Tony stopped, realizing his mistake. He hadn't heard of the vampires into the construction site. They had heard of him here. They must have somehow figured out that the armor's thermal sensors wouldn't alert him to the presence of more of their bloodthirsty kin lurking silently in the rafters above, waiting to strike. Who's crazy now? Moon Knight asked as dozens of vampires suddenly descended upon the two heroes. Still you, Stark responded, blasting energy beams at the oncoming attackers, but I guess you're not the only one now. The whole world has lost its damn mind, said Moon Knight as he planted his staff into the ground and vaulted forward, kicking back a particularly vicious vamp. For the first time ever, Khonshu might be the only one making any sense. You mean that moon god you're always talking to? Stark asked suspiciously. What's he got to say this time? He says that you've been focusing on the wrong problem, Moon Knight replied. You're so busy trying to save the universe that you're forgetting about saving the people in it. So we should stop the vampires first, then fix the time stream, Stark said, furiously firing every weapon in his arsenal at the endless wave of vampires. Easy to say, but we've been trying to come up with new ways to combat the city's current crisis, and as you can see, nothing's working. Science isn't going to solve this, Moon Knight said, pulling a small ankh from his belt. An ancient curse calls for an ancient solution. As Moon Knight raised the ankh over his head, it began to glow. The blinding rays of moonlight shining from the totem sent the remaining vampires running for cover. You wouldn't happen to have another one of those things, Stark asked. Like a really, really big one, maybe? No, Moon Knight responded, but I have something better. A plan. I'm listening, Stark said eagerly. There's a forbidden spell called the Montesi Formula, Moon Knight continued. Khonshu says it has the power to wipe out the vampires for good. What's the catch? Stark asked. The spell was written in the Darkhold, Moon Knight replied. All the pages of the Darkhold got scattered across the city when that other Wanda pulled Doctor Strange back into our dimension, Stark finished. Lovely. Khonshu says he knows where we can find the page we need, Moon Knight said. But there's one more thing, and a hero like you isn't going to want to hear it. Try me, Stark said. When I say the spell can wipe vampires out for good, I mean it, Moon Knight said. That includes all the innocent New Yorkers that have fallen prey to Dracula's legion and joined their ranks. That's a lot of potential casualties, Stark said solemnly. You used to deal in war, Tony, Moon Knight said. You know better than most that casualties are part of the equation. I'm sorry, Stark responded. The price is just too high. Never dreamed of the day where I'd hear Tony Stark say those words, Moon Knight said. Neither did I, Stark replied, uncertain, and I'm not sure how long I can keep convincing myself that they're true. Khonshu's chosen avatar leapt into the air and quickly bounded from one steel girder to the next, his white cape flowing behind him as he landed atop the building next to the construction site. He looked down at Stark and delivered a final offer. It's time to let magic clean up its own mess, Stark, Moon Knight said. Are you with me or not? Tony paused, considering the options, but before he could answer, alarms began to blare inside of his helmet. No more time to talk, boss, Friday chimed in. I just picked up a massive power spike over in Central Park, and from my readings, it seems to be an Asgardian in nature. Did Thor finally show his pretty blonde head? Stark asked hopefully. That's a big negative, Friday replied, but whatever it is, it's giving off some intense mystical energy. Great. More magic, Stark said sarcastically as he powered up his boot chest and lifted into the air. Just what I needed. As he reached the level where Moon Knight was perched, Iron Man paused for a moment. Well, are you coming with me or not? He asked. That depends, Moon Knight replied. Whose side are you on? I'm on the side of whoever can end this nightmare, Stark said, and so far, that hasn't been us. Maybe it's time to change course after all. Well, that should take care of him, the unbeatable Squirrel Girl said as she stood over a group of freshly defeated attackers. Another horde of vampires down for the count. Good work, everybody. As Squirrel Girl praised her army of rodent companions for the efforts, the tiny creatures began to chitter with delight. They would do anything for their human friend, Doreen Green, even risk their lives against the seemingly endless throng of nocturnal nightmares that had emerged after an ancient curse trapped New York City in a state of perpetual night. You've definitely earned a trip to Mr. Hickory's fresh roasted nut cart on the corner of 55th, and before Squirrel Girl could finish that thought, her BFFFF, best furry friend forever, Tippy Toe scurried past her fellow squirrels and climbed right onto Doreen's shoulder. As Tippy began to chirp in a Squirrel Girl's ear, Doreen's ever-present smile dropped a bit. Wait, that can't be right, Squirrel Girl said. A giant squirrel fell out of the sky here in Central Park. Are you sure, Tippy? Tippy Toe leapt from Squirrel Girl's shoulder and bolted back towards the heart of the park. Before she disappeared into the woods, she turned around and beckoned to her friend for her to come along. Guess Mr. Hickory is going to have to keep his nuts warm a little longer, Squirrel Girl said, shrugging as she followed Tippy Toe into the dark forest. The rest of the squirrels stayed close behind Doreen, ready to take on whatever threats might be lurking in the shadows. As soon as they reached a clearing, Squirrel Girl realized that Tippy Toe hadn't been exaggerating in the slightest. There, in the middle of a small impact crater, was the biggest squirrel Doreen had ever seen. Her furry friends surrounded the creature and stared in awe, but something was clearly wrong. The giant rodent was hurt bad. Excuse me, ma'am, Squirrel Girl said cautiously. You look like you could use a friend. Aye, the enormous squirrel replied with a pain in his voice. I am so far from home, yet the scent of this realm seems oddly familiar. Tell me, to where have I fallen, dear child? You're on Earth, New York City to be exact, Squirrel Girl responded proudly. Whoa, hold on, did you just talk? Indeed, the creature said, lifting its massive head to get a better look at the curious human girl with the rodent's tail. I mean, I know you can talk to me, Squirrel Girl continued. I talk to squirrels all the time. It's one of my superpowers, but you weren't just chirping and chittering. You talked in English, like a person. The squirrels of Midgard do not have the ability to speak, the mysterious rodent said. What a shame. I know, right, Squirrel Girl mused. I'm the only one who gets to enjoy all of their stories. Guess I'm just lucky. I have a story to tell as well, the oversized squirrel said, but sadly there is very little luck in it. Ooh, I wish I had some popcorn, Squirrel Girl said as she sat cross-legged on the ground next to her new friend, eager to learn more. Her squirrel companions gathered around and listened intently. My name is Ratashoctor, the creature began. I hail from the Golden Kingdom, once known as Asgard, though my true home is the branches of Yggdrasil. Asgard, Squirrel Girl exclaimed. Are you friends with Thor? Because I totally am. I have known the god of thunder since he was just a boy, Ratosker continued. It was my sworn duty to climb the world tree, delivering messages across the 10 realms. It was a simple life, but one I took great pride in. I sought no glory and I posed no threat, or so I believed. Here comes the part where Loki does something nasty, right? Squirrel Girl asked excitedly, chomping down on a handful of ink cords that she had found scattered on the ground nearby. I have my qualms with the trickster for his treatment of Yggdrasil, Ratakaser said, but according to a vision I had, I do not believe it was Loki who laid me low. In fact, it was 2 Midgardians who sought to end my days. A mortal sorcerer in a metal mask and the lord of vampires himself. Yikes! Squirrel Girl yelped. The 2 must have conjured a spell to rip me from my beloved Yggdrasil, Ratosker said, trailing off as she considered what had occurred. And then you crash-landed here, Squirrel Girl finished, right in the heart of vampire territory. I bet they were planning to send an undead army to take you prisoner. Or worse. But why? I mean, sure, squirrels are some of the toughest fighters ever, and it's nice to see someone finally realizing that, but there are so many other threats that these jerks are up against aside from your obvious awesomeness. What makes you so special? My horn, Ratoskasur said, motioning to the long wooden tusk protruding from her forehead. Yeah, Squirrel Girl said, I was going to ask about that. I just assumed you were some sort of magical squirrelicorn or something. The horde is made from a branch of Yggdrasil itself, Ratosker said. It is imbued with a world-tree life-giving power. Should it pierce the Vampire King's heart, it would likely end his eternal reign, and in order to remove such risk, they are undoubtedly seeking to remove me from play. Well, they'll have to go through us first, Squirrel Girl exclaimed, lifting her fist in the air triumphantly. Her squirrel companions all squeaked with joy, but silence quickly fell once more as the leaves around them began to rustle. Suddenly, several vampires lunged out from the woods, hissing and baring their sharp teeth as they rushed towards Ratosker. "You know the drill, gang," Squirrel Girl shouted to her tiny squirrel friends. The squirrels jumped into action, scampering forward to meet their attackers. In a frenzy of teeth and claws, the vampires soon found themselves overpowered by the bushy-tailed battalion. Every time they managed to shake off one rambunctious rodent, 3 more took its place. "I bet on buck teeth over fangs any day," Squirrel Girl cheered as her fearsome foes fled back into the darkness. But before the hairy heroes could celebrate another hard-earned victory, the next wave of vampiric villains emerged from the forest, this time nearly doubled in number. At the center of the horde stood a pale-skinned man in a pitch-black suit and a blood-red cape adorned with gold ornamentation. His commanding presence made it instantly clear that he was the one in charge. The vampires around him eagerly awaited his orders. "Stand aside, child," the vampire said to Squirrel Girl, his voice as cold as ice. "This creature belongs to me." "I don't know who you think you are, buddy," Squirrel Girl said defiantly, "but Ratiskar is with us now. You don't get to hurt her." "I wouldn't dream of it," the vampire said. "I have far more important plans for that mangy beast. You, however, shall not be as fortunate. So swears Dracula." "Dracula?" a bewildered Squirrel Girl muttered. "No, it can't be." "Oh, it is," Dracula responded with a grin, his fangs glistening in the light of the blood moon. "And you, my dear, shall be the next to join my eternal legion." With a wave of his hand, Dracula unleashed his vampire horde upon Squirrel Girl. She dodged and leaped as quick as she could, hoping to prevent them from sinking their sharp teeth into her flesh. "Don't let them get to Ratasker!" Squirrel Girl yelled, clearly more concerned about her newly arrived ally than about herself. Even though her rodent army vastly outnumbered the vampires, Squirrel Girl quickly realized that her forces were gravely outmatched. These were Dracula's most elite soldiers, and Doreen knew that she and her friends were in over their heads. "Tippy, call in reinforcements!" Squirrel Girl shouted. With a loud series of squeaks, Tippy towed back and forth every animal that called Central Park home, from rats and raccoons to frogs and felines. As they skittered across the ground towards the unsuspecting vampire, another wave of animals swooped down from the skies. "I didn't know you could speak bird, Tippy," Squirrel Girl exclaimed, genuinely surprised to see the large feathered flock furiously pecking at her foes. Tippy-Toe shrugged with confusion. "Those creatures are not of this realm," Ratasker said. "The ravens served Loki himself, and the crows belong to Hela. Apparently Dracula is not the only one searching for my whereabouts." "Hey, we'll take all the help we can get," Squirrel Girl said, leaping forward to join the flurry of teeth and beaks and claws and talons. Squirrel Girl's furry friends continued to do everything in their power to distract the undead warriors from their true prey. But then, without warning, every one of Doreen's beloved squirrels abruptly stopped in their tracks. Guys," Squirrel Girl said, "what's going on?" "You are not the only one who can speak to rodents," Dracula mused. "In the past, I've reserved this talent for bats and rats, but I suppose it works on squirrels just as well. And I, for one, shall enjoy the irony of what is about to unfold." Tippy-Toe and her fellow squirrels turned to face Squirrel Girl, their eyes glowing a sinister red. Squirrel Girl gasped in horror as she realized that Dracula had somehow pitted her best friends against her. Although she herself was not under the Vampire King's thrall, Squirrel Girl still found herself unable to move, completely paralyzed by the shock of the moment. "No, please," Squirrel Girl shouted as the ravenous rodents began to descend upon her, but before the tiny terrors could devour Doreen, a powerful blast erupted from the skies, knocking the squirrels back and breaking them free from Dracula's control. "Looks like you've got a rodent problem, kid," a semi-robotic voice said. "Lucky for you, I happen to be on pest control duty." Iron Man descended from above and landed on one side of Squirrel Girl. On her other side, Moon Knight glided onto the scene. The two heroes have arrived just in the nick of time. "I'm so glad you guys are here," Squirrel Girl gushed with glee. "We were trying to rescue this giant Asgardian squirrel when Dracula and his army attacked us. I don't know how, but he turned my little buddies against me for a moment there. I really thought it was all over." "It is," Iron Man said as he blasted back a few more vampires with his repulsors. "We're getting you out of here. Now." "Not without Ratiskar," Squirrel Girl said. "Yeah, about that," Moon Knight replied, tossing a few crescent-shaped shuriken at the oncoming attackers. "I don't see any giant squirrels around here. No Dracula either. And they say I'm the crazy one." Squirrel Girl looked towards the site where Ratiskar had landed earlier and was shocked to find that her new friend had gone missing. And Moon Knight was right about Dracula's disappearance as well. "She was just here, I swear," Squirrel Girl cried. "Dracula must have escaped with her when we weren't looking. We have to go after them." "Not a chance," Iron Man said. "We barely got the means to fight off a handful of regular fangers. We're definitely not ready to face off against Dracula." "Not yet," Moon Knight added as if he knew something the others did not. "But when the time comes," Iron Man continued, "we're going to need every ally we can find, alive. That includes you. Now come with me." Iron Man lifted in the air, grabbing Squirrel Girl under her arms and taking her with him. "And consider this your lucky day." "Wait, no," Squirrel Girl pleaded. Not only was she abandoning Ratiskar, but her squadron of squirrels was being left behind to fend for themselves as well. Only Tippy-Toe had managed to climb aboard the Iron Man Express before it took flight. Squirrel Girl's gaze stayed fixed on the park until her tiny allies had faded completely from sight. With a heavy heart, she turned her attention to the blood moon hanging over her city. "Trust me, kid," Iron Man said as they flew together towards the safety of Avengers Tower. "This is for the best." The armored Avenger seemed strangely confident about the fact, but for the first time she could remember, Squirrel Girl wasn't feeling quite so optimistic. That was Squirrel Girl's lore. Now we're going on to Spider-Man's lore. But before we get into it, if you like this video, definitely subscribe for more. Tell me in the comments below what your favorite lore from this game is. And I also stream every day on Twitch and YouTube. It's going to be linked down in the description below or linked up here. You can go check out my Twitch. It helps out a lot if you guys, come out, hang out, maybe play some Marvel Rivals. Or if you just want to get automatic notifications when I go live, when I post a new YouTube video, or just talk to me and hang out in general, then you should definitely join my Discord, which is going to be also down in the description below or right up here. I really appreciate you guys stopping by. I really appreciate you guys subscribing. Really appreciate you guys joining my Discord. I really appreciate you guys following my Twitch. I appreciate it all. So without further ado, here's Spider-Man's lore. Every week or so, Peter Parker swung uptown from his usual haunts to the Manhattan side of the Queensboro Bridge, looking across towards home. And every week, there was still no way to get there. There were too many vampires patrolling the bridge and other horrific monsters flying over it. Dracula had taken Manhattan all for himself, and he wasn't letting any of his human playthings escape. Still, Peter came by to look, wishing he could talk to Aunt May every Wednesday. That's when he missed Aunt May the most, because ever since he'd moved out of her house, he'd always try to get back to her to see her for lunch on Wednesdays. Today, he was staying a little further away from the bridge, watching it from Midtown Tunnel's ventilation tower, a mile downstream past the UN headquarters. It was a quiet place for contemplation since the huge fans were no longer running. He had cased the areas for vampires before letting himself have his weekly moment of regret and longing for a world before the time string entanglement, before the vampires had taken over New York, before he had lost track of the days since he'd seen the sun. Gazing at the bridge under the dead eye of the blood moon, Peter was lost in his head, thinking about two things at once. One, he was frustrated about not being allowed to help out with the construction of the time stream reintegration device that Reed Richards and Tony Stark had been working on. For some reason, they felt that Peter would be more useful swinging through the streets and webbing up vampires as Spider-Man than contributing his own brand of scientific expertise to their little super genius think tank. Two, he was remembering when he had been there the week before, although it was hard to know what time it was when the sun never came up and the moon always hung full over the river. He'd been wishing he could see Aunt May, just like tonight when he noticed a twinkling in the air. Just in front of him, it got a little brighter, and a folded piece of paper appeared out of nowhere, pinched between two fingers. The hand disappeared and the piece of paper drifted down on Peter's right knee. Huh, he thought. That didn't happen every day. He unfolded the paper and read, Peter, the Master Weaver told me to find you and tell you the web of life and destiny needs you. I'll reach out again when it's time for you to come here. That time will be soon. Spider-0. Spider-0? Master Weaver? Peter had never heard of either. Nor did he have any idea what the web of life and destiny might be, but this was the day he would finally find out. As he silently gazed towards Queens, a portal popped open next to him. A young woman was on the other side. So, I'm guessing you're Spider-0, eh? Peter said. Do you happen to have an actual real person name? She ignored his question. We need you, Peter. The web of life and destiny needs you. I don't... Peter paused for a moment before saying what he really meant. I belong here. Spider-Man belongs everywhere, Spider-0 responded cryptically. Come with me and I'll show you. Peter didn't want to go through the portal. Something told him it would be hard to get back for any number of possible reasons, and he couldn't take the chance. So instead, Spider-0 showed him the web of life and destiny through the rift. The night sky beyond it blazed with portals and stars. The city below it was a dark splendor of neon-lit towers and shadow, extending to the horizon in every direction. See, Peter, this is your destiny, Spider-0 said. Our destiny. If the web fails, all Spider people will disappear, including you, and not too long after that, reality comes apart. The web is what holds it all together. His gut told him to leap into action and save the universe, but in his heart, Peter knew that he had to say no. At least for now. His city needed him more. If things get worse, you know where to find me, he said. I'll try to come and help, but New York is my home and I belong here. Spider-0 didn't press him further, but she did say she would be coming back. Peter didn't argue. As the portal faded away, Peter started thinking that the web might be like the model of the universe Tony Stark had talked about, with dimensions wrapped up in a tight string that vibrated through space and time and intersected, well, like a web. Peter knew a little bit about string theory, but the way Tony talked about space-time when he and Reed were working out the math for the TRD, that was just a bit beyond Peter's reach. He could see what it was the same way he could see what Arthur Douglas was doing on the saxophone. Actually, doing it himself was on a whole nother level. Peter was a bit crestfallen at having to admit this to himself, but hey, at least he still had streets of patrol and citizens to save from vampires and other creatures of the night. What would be worse? There you are, a more familiar voice called out, snapping Peter back into reality. He glanced up to see Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, rapidly approaching, fully flamed on. No more sitting here and moping around how much you miss Aunt May's sweet cakes, Petey, Johnny said. We've got work to do. Didn't we just defeat a deviant mutate together like an hour ago? Peter asked. The two heroes had long been best friends and had joined countless team-ups over the years, but the frequency of their joint missions together had increased exponentially since the city had fallen under the curse of never-ending night. That's already old news, Johnny laughed. I've incinerated at least a dozen more vamps since then, all on my lonesome. But Reed just sent me some juicy new intel that's gonna blow your mind. Please don't let it be a vampire Galactus, Peter muttered nervously under his breath. Way better, Johnny said with a confident smile. Blade finally showed up. Blade, Peter said with a genuine surprise. A vampire hunter had been mysteriously missing in action ever since Dracula's horde first descended upon the island of Manhattan. Peter breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that Blade's expertise in battling vampires could really help the heroes turn the tide back in their favor. It was almost too good to be true. Squirrel Girl's crew claims to have seen him in Central Park 20 minutes ago, Johnny continued, beginning to fly towards the center of the city. We have to find him before you-know-who does. Peter immediately left from his perch, spinning a strand of webbing and swinging after the Human Torch. Johnny was moving fast, but Peter could easily follow the trail of flame that his friend left in the air behind him. As the duo descended to the southeast corner of Central Park, they couldn't believe their eyes. There he was, a half-man, half-vampire warrior clad in all black, grinning as he furiously swung his swords at a group of oncoming vampires. His sharp fangs glinted in the light of the blood moon. There was no doubt about it. This was Blade, the legendary Daywalker. And suddenly both Peter and Johnny felt a lot more hope. You just gonna stand there staring, boys? Blade asked, not even looking up from his foes. Or are you gonna help me take down these damn fangers? Oh, yeah, sorry, Peter said, leaping into action, rapidly shooting a barrage of webs at the feet of the vampire horde. I just don't think either of us expected you to be here. You and me both, Blade mused. Been on a secret recon mission trying to figure out how the hell Dracula made New York his new turf. Any luck, Johnny asked. Found a few leads, Blade said, his tone instantly becoming much more serious. But they all sounded a bit hard to believe. Says the guy currently in a sword fight with vampires, Spidey jested. Blade didn't even crack a smile, but to be fair, he didn't have much reason to. As much as Blade hated vampires, vampires always hated Blade right back. Not only because he was constantly hunting them down and ending their immortality early, but also because they were extremely jealous of him. Blade had something that no other vampire had, the ability to survive in the sunlight. Peter worried that fact alone would make his friend Dracula's most wanted. See, even though the city was shrouded in darkness for the moment, Dracula had to know that his little ploy wouldn't last forever. If he could use this opportunity to find a more permanent solution to his brood's limitations, however, a solution that was likely to be found in Blade's hybrid blood, then he wouldn't need to rely on an empire of eternal night anymore. No matter the time of day, vampires would rule the city, and eventually the world. As Peter pondered the chilling possibilities, he continued to web shut fang-filled mouths as swiftly as he could. Meanwhile, Johnny and Blade were using more lethal methods to eliminate their undead attackers. Johnny unleashed powerful bursts of superheated plasma to incinerate the vampire soldiers, while Blade effortlessly sliced his foes into bits with his swords. Peter tried not to throw up in his mask, both from the sight and the smell. Soon the chaos subsided and 3 heroes were the only men left standing. Was that it? Peter asked, well aware of the mistake he had just made the second the words left his lips. His spider sense immediately let him know that even greater danger lurked nearby. Classic Parker luck. Calm before the storm, Blade said knowingly. Indeed, a sinister voice responded as Dracula himself stepped out of the shadows, his blood-red cape gently swaying in the breeze. Dracula? Johnny exclaimed, almost excited. The Lord of the Vampires had rarely left his castle since the nightmare began. Big mistake showing your pasty face in public, pal. The Human Torch released an enormous burst of flames in Dracula's direction, but the Vampire King dodged out of the way with uncanny speed. Peter unloaded burst after burst of webbing towards Dracula as well, but fared no better when it came to hitting his target. Their foe was far too fast. Takes a vamp to beat a vamp, Blade said, raising both of his swords as he pushed between his new allies and lunged at Dracula. You speak true, Dracula responded as he unsheathed his 2 ornate swords and met Blade in combat, and since you are only half a vampire, it is clear who shall claim victory. Sparks flew as metal clashed. For every thrust of Blade's weapons, Dracula had a perfect counterattack that left the vampire hunter growling with frustration. Despite Blade's undeniable combat skill, Spidey could see that the Daywalker was outmatched. The hunter was about to become the prey if Peter didn't do something fast. Get ready to light it up, Johnny, Peter said. His fantastic friend nodded, knowing what to do next. As Peter launched another bombardment of web blasts from his wristbands, Johnny produced a wall of flame directly in their path. As the dense balls of webbing passed through the flames, they instantly ignited. The burning projectiles impacted Dracula, setting his cape ablaze and distracting him for a mere moment. A moment Blade eagerly took advantage of. Nice steel you've got there, Vlad, Blade said, kicking the legendary sword of Dracula from his foe's hands. Think I'll add him to my collection. Blade quickly wrenched a smaller yet equally legendary blade from the undead king's claws. And I shall add your head to mine, Dracula snarled back. Even though he had been disarmed, Dracula still managed to dodge Blade's frenzy of attacks. While the 2 vampires clashed, Peter released a heavy spray of webbing at Dracula's feet, stopping in his tracks for a moment. But just as Spidey swung in to deliver a swift kick to Dracula's pointed teeth, the vampiric villain turned himself into a black mist, freeing himself from the webs and sending Spidey soaring straight through him. Hey Blade, Johnny yelled. Let's show this jerk how we like our steaks. Blade grabbed a pair of sharp wooden spikes from his bandolier and hurled them through the air, straight at Dracula's heart. Johnny lit up the sharp stakes with 2 quick bursts of flames as they hurtled towards their deadly destination. Well done, Dracula said as he used his lightning-fast reflexes to bat the burning stakes out of the sky split seconds before they could pierce his undead flesh. But I prefer my meat bloody. Dracula suddenly turned his attention back to Peter, leaping through the air and clutching the hero by the throat. And you will make the perfect appetizer, Dracula growled, lifting Peter into the air with one hand. Peter squirmed to break free from the vampire's grip, but to no avail. Peter could feel Dracula's tightening around his larynx. For once, the amazing Spider-Man was truly speechless. His vision began to cloud with darkness as he grasped for air. Dracula leaned in, his fangs ready to sink into the sinew of Peter's neck. You don't want him, Blade said, slicing at Dracula from behind with his sword. Dracula loosened his hold and Peter slumped to the ground, grasping. It's me you're after. And it is you I shall have, Dracula said confidently. Everything that happened after that was a blur. Peter tried to get back on his feet and get back into the game, but he quickly realized that he never stood a chance against Dracula, even with Blade and the Human Torch on his side. The Lord of the Vampire attacked Peter's friends ferociously, turning himself into a giant dragon-like bat and using a flap of his massive wings to extinguish the Human Torch's flames, knocking Johnny unconscious in the process. All Peter could do was watch helplessly as Dracula's monstrous form swooped down and grabbed Blade in his claws, lifting the vampire hunter into the air. Despite his efforts, Blade couldn't manage to break free from Dracula's grip. The hideous creature passed in front of the Blood Moon as he dragged his prey back into the castle, and the unspeakable horrors that waited within. As everything faded to black, Peter wondered if maybe he should have gone through that portal after all. First thing first, we gotta look at what the best journalists in New York are saying. What the Daily Bugle is reporting on. Starting off, we have the Blood Moon over the Big Apple. Manhattan is the only major city trapped in a state of eternal night, but the whole world is feeling the impact. According to Reed Richards, the Blood Moon's stationary position in our planet's orbit has led to dramatic shifts in the Earth's tide, climate, and even its magnetic field, meaning some communications could be on the brink of collapse. What about Doctor Strange? Well, the Daily Bugle reports that Doctor Strange has been missing for quite a while. Renowned surgeon and rumored sorcerer Stephen Strange mysteriously disappeared just before the city was plunged into darkness. Coincidence? But some New Yorkers on the street are finding some offensive items on sale in the gift shop of his Sanctum Sanctorum on Bleecker Street, a vampire-themed board game that some fear may be linked to the city's recent influx of bloodthirsty monsters roaming the streets. This board game is no other than the Tomb of Dracula, War on Central Park. We can see Blade, Squirrel Girl, and Doctor Strange all on the cover. What about Moon Knight? Well, in the article Bad Moon, Night Rising, the Daily Bugle reports that when danger stalks tonight, we have to take heroes where we can find them. In the back alley of Greenwich Village, the Midnight Mission has long been rumored to be the base of operations for a vigilante known as Moon Knight. That leads the Daily Bugle to speculate that some of the colorful lights emanating from the Midnight Mission might be a part of some ancient ritual. The Daily Bugle continues to investigate. But it's not a Daily Bugle newspaper until we read the article about Spider-Man. Spider-Man, villain or vampire? Everybody knows Midtown's been massacred by monsters, so where is this so-called spectacular Spider-Man? The Daily Bugle has its suspicions. Unless New York's most dangerous vigilante is off cowering in a corner somewhere, it's more than likely he's already joined forces with the vampires. Can you imagine a sinister Spider-Vamp loyal reader? As if that web-slinging wacko wasn't already bad enough. But who's behind this vampiric attack on Manhattan? Well, the Daily Bugle thinks it might have figured it out. While the exact source of the vampire infestation in New York City remains uncertain, some sources indicate that Dracula himself may be to blame. This rumor has gained traction due to a recent addition to the city's skyline, a Gothic castle that appeared in Central Park. This architectural eyesore is believed to be the home base for the growing vampire army. Now that we've covered the Daily Bugle's investigations, we can get to the bottom of what's actually happening and if Spider-Man is actually really a vampire leader or not. Spoiler alert, he's not. But before we get into it, if you like this video, you should definitely subscribe for more. I try and make weekly videos, whether it be Titanfall, Marvel Rivals, or everything in between. I also try and stream those games almost every weekday. My Twitch is going to be down below, or it's going to be linked up here. And if you want to keep updated on all my videos, you want to hang out and talk to me, or you want to get automatic notifications from my stream, you should definitely join my Discord, which is also going to be linked in the same place. We have a lot of fun on Discord, great times. We like to have conversations. We hang out. It's really fun. Now on to the real origins of this vampiric infestation. Doom travels to Transylvania to have a conversation with Dracula, and Dracula questions why he's come here. It's a long way from Latveria. It turns out Doom has brought Dracula a gift. Dracula, to say the least, is skeptical at first. A gift from Doom? Do you think Dracula's a fool? Doom is just another pathetic supervillain whose loyalty can be purchased with mere baubles. He's Dracula, and he's reigned over the night for centuries. What does Doom have on him? But Doom offers something Dracula can't refuse. A crystal that could help Dracula rule the night forever. Now Dracula's interested and he asks Doom to continue. Doom has brought Chronovium, pretty much crystallized timepieces from when the timelines shattered and the whole time stream entanglement began. But Doom has a hypothesis. If he combines Dracula's blood with the Chronovium, then he can unlock the true power of the Chronovium and potentially trap a city in eternal night. Now Dracula thinks that's all fine and dandy, but again, why would he trust a pathetic supervillain? Doom wants to keep the heroes busy, Dracula gets eternal night. And then Doom and Dracula both have the freedom to pursue greater goals. And Dracula asks, what greater goal is there than eternal night? Doom says, how about an existence where vampires can walk freely in the day? And Doom thinks he can make that happen with the vampiric verses from the Darkhold. But Dracula thinks that Doom is still tricking him. He's not naive, he's an old dude. He can see through his tricks. And Doom just says, Doom never reveals all. But I promise you on the soul of my mother, this is not an act of deception. What I have offered you will come to pass, should you choose it to. Dracula says, all it takes is one drop of blood. Dracula thinks he can spare that much. After all, the streets of New York will be running red with it soon enough. But where did Dr. Strange go? As the Daily Bugle reported, Dr. Strange has disappeared. Well, as it turns out, he locked himself away in the astral plane when Doom started the time stream entanglement. While he was there, he searched for the Darkhold that he had previously hidden. Dr. Doom was searching it, and he knew that if Dr. Doom found it, bad things can happen. Doctor Strange did find the Darkhold, but somehow, Khonshu had gotten a hold of it, and Khonshu took Doctor Strange captive. Khonshu's plan to defeat Dracula was to kill every single vampire with the vampiric verses from the Darkhold. However, there are a lot of innocent people that have also suddenly turned to vampires, pretty much as an extreme measure to immediately stop all vampires, and there's gonna be a lot of casualties, and not everybody's agreeing with this. So Khonshu took Strange captive as previously mentioned. Khonshu was trying to make Strange cast a spell to kill all vampires, but that wasn't really working, and Strange had one trick up his sleeve to escape. Steven challenged Khonshu to a game of Senet, which is pretty much just Egyptian chess, as it is described. But unfortunately for Khonshu, legend says that he's actually really bad at Senet, and the reason there are different phases of the moon is because Khonshu lost a game of Senet. So Strange played him, and he ended up winning. He earned his freedom and recovered the Darkhold. In the meantime, Blade had been in Transylvania. When he heard that Dracula was up to something, he immediately went to his castle to stake him out. Blade's been hunting vampires his whole life. Not a lot of people do it, they don't have the skills or guts. When he heard Dracula had a plan, he went to go stop him immediately. But as soon as he got to Transylvania, he realized that Dracula wasn't there. He was already in New York, where he had turned it into his personal stomping grounds. The reason Blade is such a good vampire hunter is because he operates a little bit differently than everybody else. He can hunt during the day because he's half vampire, half human. He is the Daywalker. But with no day, Blade has lost his biggest advantage. That didn't matter, Blade still had a mission to carry out, so he went to give Dracula a warm New York welcome. He met up with Human Torch and Spider-Man, but Dracula was ready. He knocked out Human Torch and Spider-Man and captured Blade, hauling him to his dungeon beneath his castle. Blade admits it was a smart move on his part. When your biggest threat is going after you, you take him out first. But Blade isn't the only captive in Dracula's dungeon. There's also the Asgardian squirrel, Ratosker, who has an enchanted horn that can end the life of whatever it pierces, including an immortal Dracula. With the two biggest threats facing Dracula off the board, it doesn't seem that Dracula is going to be stopped anytime soon. Blade says it's going to be a long night. And finally, what are the rest of the heroes up to, including Psylocke, Iron Man, Wolverine, Winter Soldier, Adam Warlock, and Moon Knight? Well, they've kind of made their own team. They call it the Eternal Knights. Moon Knight talks about how Khonshu hasn't really been present in his head, and while Khonshu's never been really one to answer prayers, Moon Knight hopes that Khonshu's listening now. Moon Knight has been upholding Khonshu's mission to protect all travelers of the night. Moon Knight and Iron Man came to the mutual realization that some of the other heroes that they had aligned themselves with aren't really willing to get their hands dirty like they need to. Moon Knight says they're also hung up on the idea that some of the vamps used to be innocent civilians, and they aren't willing to accept the notion that every war has casualties. And it's like Khonshu always taught Moon Knight, vengeance comes at a steep cost. So does victory. Stark came to Moon Knight's way of thinking pretty quickly, but not everyone followed suit, including the Fantastic Four and Squirrel Girl. They were all too squeaky clean to do what needed to be done. So while they're up in their ivory tower trying to figure out ways to save everyone, Moon Knight and everybody else is on the streets doing the real work, saving as many lives as they can, and ending the ones that they can't. Some of the Eternal Knights are proud to be doing what they're doing. Wolverine and the Winter Soldier wear their ichor like a badge of honor. So does a new girl with a giant sword that speaks Japanese, Psylocke. She may be a better hunter than Moon Knight, but others don't want their reputations to be tarnished by the blood they're spilling. So, Tony Stark made new suits for everybody. He incorporated chronovium into the armor stacks, tapping into its ability to rewind time, and the results are epic new suits with a gothic aesthetic that hits all the right notes and faces. But they aren't the only ones sporting new threads. Recently, they came across a group of vampires near Moon Knight's hideout in Greenwich Village, and that group was being led by a man in fancy white armor. And Moon Knight could have sworn he recognized him from somewhere. Whoever he was, he looked like he was ready to give old Dracula a run for his money when it comes to leadership over the vampire army. And when he does, Moon Knight wants to be there to watch. During this time, the heroes are on 24/7 shifts fighting vampires and saving as many as they can. Moon Knight was prepared though, and quickly groups up with Iron Man, who had been working with Reed Richards to solve the time stream entanglement and the vampiric invasion. So far, the think tank has not come up with a solution to the vampire threat, but we're working towards a fix for the time streams. Moon Knight offers up a weapon against the vampires though. The Montesi formula, a powerful spell that could permanently erase vampires from the equation. And while all of this is happening, Blade finally reappears to help the heroes with the vampiric threat. Spider-Man and Human Torch have been sent out by Mr. Fantastic to fight off a horde of the undead. But unbeknownst to them, Dracula was there too. Fortunately for the best friends, Blade also showed up. Unfortunately, however, the three of them were not strong enough to stop Dracula alone, and Dracula knocked them all out, capturing Blade and imprisoning him in his dungeon. The hero's situation more dire than ever, they are getting desperate. So a few heroes start to find Moon Knight's solution a lot more agreeable. The caveat with Moon Knight's plan is that eliminating every vampire also means eliminating any innocents that have fallen victim to the curse, but a few of the heroes are fine with that. Moon Knight, Wolverine, Winter Soldier, and Iron Man all understand that with every war also comes casualties. Sacrifice the few to save the many. But not everyone sees it that way, including Mr. Fantastic. They seek a way to defeat Dracula without sacrificing innocents. And that's when Squirrel Girl barges in with exactly that. An Asgardian squirrel named Red Tosker, whose horn can kill any immortal being pierced by it, crash lands in Central Park. Bad news though, Dracula captured and imprisoned her before the heroes even knew about her. And of course, around the same time, Black Panther was in New York helping out but was ambushed by Dracula and infected. Fortunately, Black Panther is able to resist the control of the Dark Lord but still suffer from the curse. However, this means that the vampires were taken out, the King of Wakanda would also be gone. At this point, Reed is getting ready to use his time stream reintegration device using pages from the Darkhold to hopefully solve some of these messes before it's too late. But Iron Man stops him, telling Reed the probability of something going wrong without the pages containing the Montesi formula was way too high. So all of the heroes presumably worked together and Reed came up with a plan. Invisible Woman led a team into Dracula's castle to end the threat once and for all. All the while, Human Torch went supernova, eliminating hordes of vampires, allowing the rest of the team to infiltrate the castle safely. Freeing Ratosker and using the Montesi formula, the heroes are able to stop Dracula. But as it turns out, heroes are not the only ones who helped stop the Vampire Lord. Dracula was actually right to not trust Doom, as he had helped the heroes defeat the Horde and Dracula. In fact, the vampiric invasion as a whole was a ruse crafted by Doom to distract the heroes while he studied the Chronovium infused with Dracula's blood, believing it capable of shaping the timelines as he wished. But Doom 2099 knew all of this. He thought little of past Doom's plan, knowing nobody rivals the Doom of the future, not even Doom. But Doom underestimated past Doom, and while Doom 2099 admits he took a win this round with the Chronovium, Doom 2099 knows he is nothing compared to the man he is destined to become. After one of the longest battles most of the heroes have ever seen, Emma Frost knew it was time for a celebration, so they could have some much needed time off to enjoy themselves. So she hosted the Hellfire Gala, inviting all of the heroes, but Doom 2099 had other plans. Crashing the party and seemingly working with Ultron, the heroes are forced to swing into battle once more, playing another round in the chess game between the two Dooms fighting for the fate of their universes. Djalva, the plane where noble spirits dwell. Not long ago, this sacred place welcomed the guests whose mind and body were still as one. Through ancient ritual, King T'Challa of Wakanda transcended his corporeal form and ventured into this mythical realm. After an incident involving the Winter Soldier, Princess Shuri had confided in him her long-held belief that Bast, the Wakandan Panther goddess, had somehow been corrupted. T'Challa had his own concerns, so he ventured to T'Challa in search of answers. Shuri warned her brother of the potential dangers of communing with Bast, but T'Challa had to find out the truth for himself. When he arrived, T'Challa was shocked to find no other souls roaming the Great Belt. The ancestral plane was as silent as death itself. T'Challa wandered for some time, eventually sitting near the edge of a shimmering lake. He opened a small pouch on his belt and removed a strip of fabric, tying it over his eyes. He had often blindfolded himself when meditating in the physical plane to help block out any distractions. Taking a deep breath, T'Challa cleared his mind and called out to Bast. He did not have to wait long for a response. "My avatar, you are far from your empire," Bast whispered in T'Challa's mind. "As are you, my goddess," T'Challa replied. "Your people have been crying out for you, but get no response." "I have heard their prayers," Bast said, "and you will help me answer them." "I am ever at your service," T'Challa said. "Do not forget that," Bast said, a low mumble in her voice. "There are those eager to taint you against me, who will try to persuade you to betray me. Heed them not. They are fools and heretics." "I have always been loyal to you," T'Challa assured her. "Then prove yourself," Bast responded, her words becoming ever more fierce. "Swear that you serve only me and will strike down all who oppose my cause. Do so and I shall grant you unlimited power." In his mind's eye, T'Challa saw a vision of the heart-shaped herb used to grant the Black Panther's enhanced abilities. It now burned a fiery crimson. T'Challa's deepest fears were now confirmed. "Pledge yourself to me, boy," Bast growled in T'Challa's ear. T'Challa ripped off his blindfold, breaking his connection with the goddess. There, in the rippling water in front of him, he swore he saw an image of his goddess, warped and twisted, stained red and black, with a repulsive aura beyond anything he had ever felt. T'Challa dove into the water and tried to grab a hold of the divine being, but it slipped through his grasp. Instead, he awoke on the floor of his bedchamber in front of a vibranium statue of Bast. Its eyes shone brightly for a split second, then faded to black. "If you can hear me, goddess," T'Challa vowed, placing a gentle hand on the statue's head, "I will not rest until your holy spirit is purged of this darkness. You have my word." In the beginning, there was darkness. The universe was no more than an endless void, a vast expanse of silent nothingness until celestial forces shaped the stars and nurtured life into being. Just as the universe began in darkness, so did I. created within a protective cocoon from which I burst forth, fully formed, a golden guardian designed to bring peace to the galaxy with my vast cosmic might. But there was a cycle to life, and just as I was born from this cocoon, now I have returned to it, much sooner than I could have anticipated. My cosmic awareness sensed that something was amiss, a great disturbance in the fabric of time and space itself. As multiple realities and timelines became entangled, I reflexively shielded myself with a protective shell. If I truly hoped to fulfill my ultimate purpose, then I have to bide my time and build my strength for the trials ahead. But what would they be? Even with my deep connection to the primal forces of the universe, I was both literally and figuratively in the dark once more. As I slumbered within my restorative sheath, it became a wayward vessel floating through the cosmos. I was no longer in control of my own destiny, merely a passenger adrift on the currents of fate. The silence out among the stars brought a sense of tranquility that I had not experienced since before my birth. That serenity would not last long. Adam! A voice called my name, echoing not in my ears, but inside of my mind. Whatever was calling me was reaching out across a void with a psyche even more powerfully attuned than my own. We are not so different, you and I, the voice continued. We both slumber while the multiverse burns around us. Some gods we are. As the powerful words pulsed within my brain, an image began to form in my mind's eye. A man confined to a sacred chamber. Not quite a cocoon like my own. His was nearly as old as time itself, yet similar in many ways. The bearded man within was frail and weak, devoid of power, but he was not always so. As my mind flooded with brief glimpses of his storied past, it became clear that he was once a mighty king that ruled a glorious realm for centuries on end. Time is something I have never feared, he said inside my mind. Not until now. Time and space are twisting around us, and I am trapped in here within the Odin sleep, unable to do a bar damn thing about it. The Odin sleep? Of course! I knew the voice was familiar, even if the man himself no longer was. It belonged to the All-Father of Asgard, mighty Odin. Had he fallen to the same forces that had caused me reflexively to retreat into my cocoon? Nay, Odin replied, reading my own thoughts. I was brought low by the machinations of my own son. The foul child has usurped the throne of Yggdrasil and is set to destroy our proud legacy for his own selfish ends yet again. Did he say Yggdrasil? How curious. But the proper name of his realm was the least of my concerns. While the rage that All-Father felt about his son's actions was palpable, there was something more beneath it. A deep concern that spanned far beyond the realm he once ruled. You too are preparing for a battle when you awaken, Golden One, Odin said. And while my son may indeed test your mettle, he is not but a distraction from your true enemy. There is a darkness in the cosmos, Adam, one far deeper than that of our slumbers. I have felt it trying to creep its way into my realm. Even into my own dreams should I be set loose. I fear that it will corrupt all it touches, snuffing out the stars themselves until nothing remains. What could he be speaking of? I called out to Odin for an answer, but his voice had muted to nothing more than a distant echo. As my cocoon drifted past the embattled realm of Yggdrasil, I left a small fraction of my soul's energy behind with the sleeping Odin. A hint of light to keep the darkness he spoke of at bay. I prayed it would be enough. Now that my cosmic awareness had been fully awakened, I could sense another empire on the horizon. This one was not nearly as ancient as Odin's realm, yet its own gods seemed just as eager to call my name. Warlock, she said with a growl of disdain. You have come a long way to die. Was I being threatened merely for passing through the space? How rude. The intergalactic empire of Wakanda shall not harm you, traveler, the voice continued, but those beyond our borders will not be nearly as kind. Of that, you have Bast's word. Bast, the panther goddess, a member of Orisha, a pantheon of deities worshipped by the people of Wakanda. But last I recalled, Wakanda was merely a notion on the planet of Earth, not an interstellar civilization. Could I have drifted into another reality? More precisely, Bast interrupted. Other realities have drifted to you. This time stream entanglement has brought us together from across a multitude of planes. What is left of each universe is converging into one, as if we had been gathered. Gathered? For what? For the feast. As Bast snarled her final words into my mind, it became clear that a divine presence had somehow been corrupted. Could she have been tainted by the very same darkness that Odin had warned me of? I had no way of knowing, as my journey across the spaceways had already continued deeper into the heart of this strange patchwork galaxy. Child of the light, a third voice suddenly echoed within me. This one I could identify without hesitation. It spoke with such raw power that it could only belong to a celestial, an ancient being spawned at the dawn of time, but yet, even though its words passed through my consciousness with tremendous force, they were softer than other celestials I had encountered, muted, faded, like distant memories. You would be wise to listen, lest my fate end up being yours as well, the celestial implored, though I had little choice to give it anything less than my undivided attention. As you know, we celestials were born out of the beginning of all that is, it continued. But we were not the first. There was a primordial force that came before us, a creature of pure darkness, so powerful that he could strike down any who threatened to shed light upon the endless oblivion he ruled. Even the Celestials themselves, I struggle to imagine a foe so formidable. Few can wrap their minds around his nihility, and yet here I am, slain by his sword, with nothing left of me but an empty husk and the echoes of consciousness. But there were far more than just the remains of a fallen Celestial in the void beyond my cocoon. I could sense that now. There was also a hint of corruption, not unlike the one that had tainted Bast, but this one not found in the disembodied mind of the slaughtered Celestial. Rather, it lingered on the great being's lifeless body, like an infected sore that had been festering for millennia. You feel him too, the voice echoed. His tainted touch has stained my corpse for eons, but now as time collapsed around us, he has awakened once more, eager to revel in this oncoming oblivion. I have called out to others like you, great cosmic forces, ancient warriors, even the gods themselves for help in containing his eternal blackness, but they have either retreated or succumbed to his poison. Perhaps you will fare better. Hoping the Celestial is right, I reached out with my mind, desperate to identify the source of his cosmic impurity. My thoughts became clouded as I heard the Celestial scream a final warning. Beware, child of light! He has found you! Who has found me? The Celestial did not answer, but another voice did, with a tone 1,000 times darker than the blackness within my cocoon. Null! As he spoke his own name, I could feel his dark tendrils digging into my mind. The ruler of the void, this king in black, had awakened somewhere, and was dragging me towards him. Try as I might, I could not escape his grip. Do not give up hope, child, the Celestial said, its voice rapidly fading. You will not be alone. Suddenly a burst of cosmic fire erupted through the heavens, producing a flash so brilliant that it permeated my walls of my cocoon. The light lasted only a second, but its usual shape forever burned itself into my mind. A majestic bird, its flaming wings spanning across the cosmos. Before I could process what had happened, the vessel that was meant to protect me now hurtled through space towards a destination unknown. My body was still confined, but my mind was in a heightened state where there had once been blinding light, now darkness and despair had slithered their way in. I was overcome with images of the horror that Noel had once committed, and those he had yet to unleash upon the universe. I could see his past and future, but what of his present? That, it seemed, was shrouded in mystery. A void greater than Noel himself. Suddenly my journey across the galaxy came to a violent end as my vessel made impact against a most unusual surface. Was this a planet? No, I could feel it writhing around me, as if it were alive, and more. I could feel Noel's sinister presence, closer more than ever. Wherever I was, he was as well. Before my cocoon could be dragged beneath the churning sea of oblivion surrounding him, a single crack appeared above me. Where before there was nothing, now there was the faintest glow, the faintest hope. I pushed through, emerging from my cocoon to gaze upon the surface of a world teeming with alien life. And as my mind touched their hive mind, it all became clear. This was Clintar, the planet of the symbiotes. It was here that Noel was once worshipped as a god. It was here that his own followers imprisoned him eons ago. And it was here that he was biding his time, regaining his strength, in hopes to break free and claim his prize once more. Perhaps he had dragged me here to snuff out my light before it could drown out his shadows, but he made a grave miscalculation. I broke free first. As I stood upon Noel's planet-sized prison, I made a solemn vow to do anything in my power to make sure this infinite blackness would not go unchecked. In the beginning, there was darkness, but in the end, there will be light, and I shall be the one to help it shine. So that was the first two parts, and we've got Venom's lore last. But before we hop into Venom's story, if you like this video, definitely subscribe for more. I've been trying to keep consistent. I'm doing weekly videos, whether they be Marvel Rivals, Titanfall, or anything in between. Sometimes we do Dead by Daylight. And if you want to talk to me or just stay up to date, or maybe even play some games, then you should definitely join my Discord, which is going to be linked down below or linked up here. We chill, we chat, we hang out. It's a whole ton of fun, so you should definitely join my Discord for updates on all my videos and all my streams, which I do every day, which is also going to be linked down below or linked up here. Without further ado, Venom's story. How in all the splinter realms did you get out of your cage? The young blonde girl asked as she effortlessly cleaved another foe in half with her enormous sword. Nothing can hold us for long, child, the hulking creature answered, for we are Venom. What about the legion of limbo demons I left to guard you, replied the mutant known as Magic, as she lifted her soul sword to deliver another fatal blow. Venom smiled as his enormous tongue licked away the strings of spittle dripping from his black lips. Never mind. Don't tell me, Magic continued. I'm well aware of what your kind can do. Symbiotes nearly devoured my entire home dimension. It's why I put you on lockdown to begin with. Venom was used to being blamed for the voracious appetites of his symbiotic brethren. But what this child didn't seem to realize was that Venom was more than just a rippling mass of xenomorphic protoplasm. A fearsome sight of claws and tongue and teeth, all ready to deal deadly damage to anyone who dared oppose him. Underneath his alien exterior was a regular human, named Eddie Brock. The symbiotic bond shared by the pair granted Eddie extraordinary abilities and given the alien a purpose. Together, as Venom, they had become a lethal protector, stalking the streets to bring their own brand of justice to those who harm the innocent. Or at least so they thought. To be honest, the details of Venom's past felt a little hazy. When his own reality collapsed around him, the Clintar hive mind that connected Venom to his fellow symbiotes overloaded Eddie's brain and left him and his alien counterpart completely disoriented. They weren't quite sure where they had come from, and they certainly weren't sure where they were, or when they were. "We're free now," Venom said, assessing his former captor, "and you look far less dangerous than they do." "You'd be surprised," Magic retorted. "We'll take our chances, little one." Venom continued, stepping forth to join his beautiful but deadly new companion in the fray. "So, who are we fighting?" "The gods," Magic replied casually. "Well, the ones that are left." As Venom surveyed the endless battlefield, he realized that the young mutant was not exaggerating. Somehow, he had ended up in the Netherrealm where occult forces were locked in an eternal war. This was far beyond the types of battles he had previously been accustomed to. Fighting criminals and Spider-Man on the streets of New York was easy compared to facing off against demons and demigods in a cross-dimensional hellscape. In a place like this, there was no right and wrong, no innocent and guilty. There were divine forces at war, and both halves of Venom were beginning to realize just how mortal they were. "How can we possibly slay gods, little one?" Venom asked, genuinely curious. "A big sword always works for me," Magic replied with a smile, giving her own weapon another skillful thrust into an oncoming horde. Venom almost let out a chuckle, glad to finally find a taste of humor amidst the horror of the strange war, but instead, he fell to his knees and let out a primal scream as daggers of pain suddenly pierced through every fiber of his being. It was as if an alarm had sounded inside his head, sending his symbiote side into a frenzy. In his mind, he saw images of distant planets shrouded in darkness, accompanied by the anguished cries of a million living creatures. But there was something more. Something was alive deep inside the world itself. Someone whose presence felt as cold as the void of space, and they were desperate to find a way out. "What just happened?" Magic asked, offering a hand to help Venom to his feet. "The hive mind," Venom said, slowly recovering his senses. "There's a group of consciousness, a kind of network that allows symbiotes to communicate, and they just sent us one hell of a message." "What did it say?" Magic asked, hiding her fear of what the answer might be. "They want us to come home to their planet," Venom responded. "They want us to slay Null before he can slay us all." "Null? Who's that?" Magic inquired. Their god," Venom said. "Then you'd better get yourself a sword," Magic replied dryly before returning her attention to the battle at hand. "The bigger, the better." "Yes," Venom mused, "and we think we know where to find one." Venom had heard the legends from his symbiote kin. Long ago, Null wielded a mighty blade known as All Black, the Necro Sword. It was said that he had once used a weapon to strike down a Celestial, one of the oldest and most powerful cosmic entities in the known universe. Stories claim that Null triumphed, but the Necro Sword was lost in the fray. Lost, but perhaps not gone forever. If the sword was still out there somewhere, Venom knew he had to find it, but he was more skilled at swinging through dark alleys and surfing the spaceways. "So, how do we get to the other side of the galaxy before all of reality is consumed by darkness?" Venom asked, not expecting Magic to have an answer. "Easy," she responded, her eyes beginning to sparkle with energy. "Just show me where you want to go." Venom reached out to the young girl, allowing a small portion of his symbiote half to slither onto her bare skin. As the alien entity formed a new bond with Magic, it instinctively tapped into her mutant ability to open interdimensional portals. In the blink of an eye, a doorway across the cosmos had opened in front of them. As Venom stepped through the portal and into the unknown, he turned and waved to Magic. "Thank you, madam," he uttered. She nodded back knowingly before returning her attention to her arcane enemies. Both warriors had impossible battles ahead, yet they were well aware that they had no choice but to keep fighting for as long as it took to claim victory. As relieved as he was to leave the war-torn netherworld behind, Venom had no time to celebrate his escape. Everything was being drowned out by the collective fear coursing through the symbiote hive mind. If Null were to return, he would not rest until all that was left was an endless oblivion. The King in Black was determined to rule once more, and his first act would be to erase all life in the universe. Venom could not let that happen. When Venom emerged from Magic's gateway, he found himself standing upon the towering remains of a slaughtered Celestial adrift in the void. He could sense a darkness on its colossal corpse, similar to the sensation he felt when the hive mind revealed Null's presence on their homeworld. He soon saw the hilt of a sword jutting from the Celestial's side. Around the wound the buried blade had inflicted, an ebony energy bubbled and churned like a cosmic infection that had been left untreated for eons. Venom reached out for the handle of the Necrosword. He began to pull, but the blade would not budge. Its darkness had spread across the Celestial's armored surface, cementing it in place. But Venom was never one to give up so easily, so he pulled again, and again, and again, but to no avail. With his full focus on the task at hand, Venom failed to notice that he was no longer alone. Some sort of cosmic cocoon, a mysterious vessel with an even more mysterious stranger had drifted close to the Celestial remains, And little did Venom realize that the man slumbering inside this protective shell had just awoken what was left of the fallen Celestial's consciousness. As Venom gave the hilt of All Black one last mighty pull, the Celestial let out a psionic scream, not from the physical pain of the blade impaled on its side, but rather from the mental anguish it was experiencing as it communed with its other cosmic companion. But the reason behind the Celestial's screech did not matter to Venom. All that he cared about were the end results. Knocked back by the Celestial's violent outburst of pain, Venom was sent tumbling aimlessly through space. As he plummeted through the void, he watched as All Black, now awakened from its slumber, bury itself deeper into the Celestial until it disappeared from view. He would have to find his way back to it with aid, perhaps from his new mystic ally, if he could survive crash landing into the planet that he was swiftly approaching, that is. Bracing himself, Venom feared he was about to leave behind nothing more than an impact crater as his legacy. But his arrival on the planet's surface was unexpectedly soft, as if he had been caught and cradled by a million loving hands. As he rose, he realized that there was a good reason for a surprisingly safe landing. He was home. This was Clintar, planet of the symbiotes, and they had unexpected company. Nearby, Venom saw an unusual object, the very same cosmic cocoon that he had failed to notice during his time at the Celestial Remains. It too had been hurled through the void onto Clintar's surface, delivered as if by fate itself. But while Venom was welcomed home by his brethren as a champion, the cocoon was seemingly about to be swallowed by a sea of hungry symbiotes. Venom could not allow that, not without knowing what or who was inside. With fang and claw, he tore through the cocoon's protective outer shell. Within moments, a figure emerged from the inside, clearly more golden god than mortal man. Venom watched and waited as a new rival gained his bearings. Not sure if he was friend or foe, his question was swiftly answered as a luminous warrior turned and attacked him.
"Don't know who you are, Goldie,"
Venom said, watching the planet undulate around him.
"but we've got work to do and I won't let you stand in my way."
"I am Adam Warlock," the man said, "and I will not let you corrupt this universe with your darkness, living shadow." Venom instantly lowered his shoulders and laughed.
"You think we are Noel?"
he said.
"You've got it all wrong, sir. We are no King of Black. We are the one who came here to end his reign permanently."
Adam Warlock paused and looked at Venom. He had not expected to find himself fighting alongside a creature of such darkness, but he would gladly accept any ally willing to join him in his crusade. The battle for the fate of the universe was about to begin, and for the first time in ages, Venom felt as if they knew exactly who they were and where they belonged. They would stand on the side of light, as long as the faintest glimmer still remained. Feudal Japan. Currently the only character from Feudal Japan is Psylocke, however she was pulled from her timeline and captured by the Collector who imprisoned her in a zoo. More on this later. Unknown. Venom doesn't have a specific timeline. Instead, when the time stream entanglement hit, they were thrown through the timelines. They've been through so many dimensions that they don't have a clear memory of what timeline they're originally from. But currently in the story of Rivals, they have found themselves in a timeline we'll cover later. Iron Fist. Iron Fist's timeline isn't specified. Penny Parker. Penny resides in an alternate reality separate from the other heroes at Tokyo 2099. The present. In the present timeline, most heroes and major characters exist, so here's a list of them and their relevance to the story. Doctor Strange. Briefly trapped in the mirror dimension, but he escaped to help fight against Dracula and free New York from the grasp of the undead threat. Captain America. The present Captain is different from the one we play in game, but is still worth mentioning as he sacrificed himself and is currently deceased in the present. Iron Man. Working with Reed Richards, he turned Avengers Tower into a fortress to solve the time stream entanglement and fight back against the hordes of vampires. Reed Richards. Mr. Fantastic has been working alongside Tony to solve the time stream entanglement and stop Dracula. So far, they have been successful in putting an end to the New York's eternal night. Moon Knight. Moon Knight has been battling the threats of the night under conscious guidance, and when Dracula took over New York, he went to help stop the vampires, but not all of the heroes agreed with his methods. Fortunately, Reed found a less lethal way to stop Dracula. Spider-Man. Peter Parker has been fighting two wars. Swinging between dimensions, he helps out in New York against the vampire army while also fighting with the Web Warriors to help defend and repair the Web of Life. The Thing. Ben Grimm helps the other heroes fight against Dracula. Human Torch. Johnny helps the rest of the Fantastic Four against the hordes of vampires. Invisible Woman. You'll never believe this, but she helped the rest of the Fantastic Four during the Eternal Night. Blade. Blade was captured during Dracula's takeover of New York but was saved by the heroes and is now resting in Wakanda. Hulk. Banner developed a special belt to help him control his transformations into Hulk, eventually finding an alternate Thor that needed his help. Thor. In the present, Thor has gone missing and the heroes cannot find him. Scarlet Witch. Wanda leaped into action when the time stream entanglement hit, holding the time stream together using chaos magic. Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl aided the heroes in saving New York from Dracula. With her unique ability to communicate with squirrels, she was able to help Ratasker defeat Dracula. Cloak and Dagger. This is going to sound crazy, but Cloak and Dagger helped fight off Dracula. Doom. One of the two Dooms currently engaged in a chess battle for the timeline comes from this timeline. And now we've covered all the characters currently in the present. It's also important to note while I've labeled the different timelines as different time periods, for ease of understanding they are also parallel worlds or alternate realities. Meaning these different time periods aren't on one straight timeline, so the future and the present aren't connected. The near future. In the near future, Wakanda has gone intergalactic and established communications and travel with the present to help solve the time stream entanglement. Black Panther. T'Challa rules over the intergalactic empire of Wakanda to try and lead his kingdom during the entanglement, but during a trip to the present's vampire-infested New York, he was cursed with vampirism by Dracula. Shuri. As Wakanda's smartest mind, Shuri has helped to solve the time stream entanglement with Reed and Iron Man. Venom. As mentioned before, Venom does not come from a specific timeline, but has found himself in the near future on a quest to stop Null before he frees himself from Clintar with the help of some new allies. Null. The god of the symbiotes is awakened and is attempting to free himself from his prison, Clintar, but fortunately his attempts to escape have alerted the heroes. However, he has managed to infect Bast with his darkness. Adam Warlock. Adam cocooned himself when he detected the time stream entanglement. He found himself on Clintar and decided to help Venom defeat Null. Mantis. Along with Psylocke, Mantis was imprisoned by the Collector. Jeff. Jeff was also imprisoned in the Collector's zoo, but the trio managed to escape. The Guardians of the Galaxy. The rest of the Guardians, including Groot, Rocket, and Star-Lord, are sent to investigate Clintar by Shuri. However, upon their arrival, their ship is damaged and they are left stranded on the planet and forced to help Venom stop Null. Asgard. In this timeline, it seems that Asgard is a separate reality from the rest of the alternate worlds, or at least the other timelines are not connected to this Asgard. Loki and Hela. Loki and Hela have teamed up to take over Asgard. They were successful in capturing the throne, but neither trust the other and think they're going to betray them. Thor. Thor was imprisoned by Loki but managed to escape and found himself in the present. After a short fight with the Hulk, Bruce Banner emerged and now Thor is seeking his help to return to his timeline and take back Asgard. Before I continue any further, if you like this video and want to stay up to date on everything cool Marvel Rivals or just get more Marvel Rivals videos in general, you should definitely subscribe for more. I also stream every day and sometimes those streams include Marvel Rivals over here on Twitch and YouTube. You should also join my Discord. You get notified when I make new videos. Come chat, come hang out with me, talk Marvel Rivals, talk anything you really want. I appreciate you guys watching. Enjoy the rest of the video. 2099. Finally on to our last timeline, 2099, which is where Season 2 takes place. Krakoa. The living island has been transported to the year 2099, so the mutants must band together to protect the island and mutant kind. Storm. Storm is holding together the island and keeping the volatile weather under control, acting as sort of an elemental guardian of the island. Emma Frost. The White Queen has decided to throw a Hellfire Gala across the timelines as a celebration. Unfortunately for her, unwanted guests have crashed the party. Ultron. Ultron has crashed the Hellfire Gala and has merged with Cerebro in attempts to unleash his virus to grow an army of cyborg heroes. Fortunately though, one man has seen this future and attended the gala with a plan to stop Ultron. Doom 2099. The other side of the chess game for the timelines. Doom 2099 currently seeks to stop Ultron because if Ultron takes over, there is no future for Doom 2099 to rule. The Mutants. After Krakoa was transported to 2099, all the mutants have banded together to protect the island and mutant kind. This includes Magneto, Wolverine, Emma Frost, Magik, etc. Namor. Namor is carefully considering an alliance with Krakoa to ensure the ocean's continued survival. Luna Snow. After saving a concert full of people from a rogue sea leviathan, Namor and Luna have developed a friendship that could help shape the fate of the land and sea. Black Widow. Taking a serum that extends her lifespan, Black Widow has teamed up with Punisher to help stop Doom 2099. Punisher. Punisher, also taking the serum to extend his lifespan, is punishing any criminal that gets in his way. Captain America. The Captain America of 2099 wasn't de-thawed till much later and is horrified by what he sees, so he's vowed to make 2099 a better place and stop Doom. Winter Soldier. With Cap and Hawkeye's help, Bucky is freed from his Hydra torture and deprogrammed. Hawkeye. Teaming up with Cap, they started helping heroes to rebuild the Avengers. And that finally wraps up all the timelines and what heroes are doing in their respective worlds. I don't think I've missed any, and obviously I had to shorten the stories to fit everyone in like the mutants. But that's a basic summary and gist of the timelines of Marvel Rivals. The more I thought about it, the more confusing it got, so I was like, I gotta look this up, and I figured everybody else would want a video to kind of clarify and figure out what's happening. Because like I said, it is really confusing. For example, you probably wouldn't think Punisher is from the year 2099, but he's also just super old because of the life-extending serum. Same with Captain America. How is he in 2099 and not the present? It's a little bit confusing, but I hope this clears some things up. And if you like this video, definitely subscribe for more. You should join my Discord, come chat, come hang out. I also stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. I want you to let me know in the comments below who you're currently maining. For me right now, it's probably Spider-Man and Ultron when he comes for sure. I'll definitely be an Ultron main. I appreciate you guys watching the end of the video, and if you liked it, leave a like, subscribe for more. Peace out, guys.